Hey everybody, I'm Sam and you're watching Growing Older Gay. This is episode 30 for September 7th, 2025. This is our weekly check-in where I tell you what's going on at my kitchen table as well as the kitchen tables around the LGBTQ plus universe. And as always, I like to start with our inspiration of the day, which is to be found every day on all four channels of our social media. All of them but Twitter, because Twitter's bad. Of course, Twitter doesn't exist. It's X now. I need to get with the system. So today, our inspiration for the day is we need to talk to ourselves in a kind, positive, and uplifting way. Because how we feel about ourselves plays a big role in how we present ourselves to the world, how we behave, and how we treat other people. And a few bullet points to dig in deeper here. The things we say to ourselves, our self-talk, builds our self-image and self-worth. If we're always saying bad things to ourselves, like, you idiot, you shouldn't have done that, you never do that right, you're never going to win this. If we're always giving ourselves negative feedback, that is the image and the belief that our minds will subconsciously believe. We need to be giving ourselves positive self-talk. We need to be telling ourselves positive things. That helps keep our energy positive, the energy we subconsciously and consciously give out to the world around us. The next item is, if we want to change the way we feel about ourselves, we need to change our self-talk. If we are giving ourselves that negative feedback constantly in our minds all day, that's going to play a big role in how we feel about ourselves. There's a lot of things that we can do externally. A lot of people think when you talk about changing how we feel about ourselves, a lot of people go immediately to their body image or how they dress, how they groom, how they look. But it starts with how you feel inside. Positive affirmations, which sounds like a lot of happy gobbledygook out there to a lot of people. And it is. But the fact of the matter is, it works. Positive affirmations work. If you do them regularly, if you say these things, if you consciously make a choice when you notice yourself giving yourself negative feedback to change the channel on that, you can go a long way to slowly but surely changing how you feel about yourself. And to close on that, we need to build ourselves up. That is really the point here. Many of us, especially that grew up gay, maybe being made fun of or feeling like we are always the odd one out, have grown up with this mechanism, this automatic mechanism of negative self-talk or negative affirming self-talk. We need to build ourselves up. And we need to make a conscious practice, even if you just start with something you paste on your mirror, something you put on the dash of your car that reminds you to give yourself some props for something that you're doing well. You're getting up. You're going to work today. That's a big deal for some people. Some people can't do that. So even if you're doing the littlest of things, I brushed my teeth, I made my bed. Give yourself some positive affirmation. And that gets to the first thing I want to talk about today, which is sort of a mental health, a spiritual health regime that I do and that has been making headlines. And that's basically a morning ritual, something you do for yourself every morning before you get started with the day. And the 1 hour rule is something that's been in the news lately. Jeff Bezos, who's the billionaire head of Amazon, has been in a couple of news stories talking about his 1 hour rule, where before he starts scrolling on his phone, before he turns on the news, before he reads an email, before he gets into any external information coming at him, he just takes about an hour every morning to relax, have a cup of coffee, do his thing, putter around the house, think, maybe read something. It is something he credits with his success and his ability to be smarter. And I agree with that, because while he's the one making the news lately about the 1 hour rule, it's nothing new. Many of us have been doing a morning ritual very similar to this for a very long time. And there are studies out there that prove that the minute we turn on our devices, the minute we turn on the news or read an email and start taking input from external sources, that affects our mood immediately. Maybe we see people that are out there doing things that disgust us and it makes us angry and it triggers those chemicals in our body. Maybe we see a friend posting on Instagram about their trip in Puerto Vallarta and we get jealous and we feel like our life sucks. There's a lot of things that can happen pretty quickly when we start digesting information right when we're getting out of bed or before we even get out the front door of our home. So a good morning ritual, the point of it is is to take some time to get centered with ourselves and to set some kind of intention for our mood for the day before we start getting bombarded with information and external sources of data. And one of the things I like to do is I take time every morning before I turn my device on, before I do all of these things. And I have 2 to 3 different things that I read every day, and I try to gain something positive from that I write it down. And I'm doing this over my morning coffee, and it just gives me a chance to stop and think for a minute and listen to some positive vibes coming from a stated source that I trust, that I know is not going to bring me down. And it just helps me to, in many cases, set myself off in the right direction on any given day. Now, does it work? Do I come home from work some days all spun out with myself wrapped around the axle? Yeah, that still happens. It's not a magic bullet, but having that morning ritual to get centered, to really get a chance to get in touch with how we're feeling and what's going on, maybe even write a list of what happens during the course of your day. I find that very helpful. Everyone's got a different ritual that works for themselves. I have some friends that sit and meditate for half an hour every morning. I don't have time for that. Some people have the time for that, where they can actually do a deep meditation, a mindfulness meditation. And if you can do that, that's even better, because that really clears your mind, centers your being, and gets you ready to really take anything. And I do believe this process of some kind of a morning ritual that you can build for yourself that works for you has every chance of making your days better, making you more powerful, more clear-headed, and more mindful in that way. So there's just a little feel-good hoo-ha for you coming from Sam today. The next thing I want to talk about is give some props. Giorgio Armani passed away this last week at the age of 91. His name goes without the need for a lot of explanation. For over 50 years, he's been an iconic designer of both men's and women's apparel, accessories. He is just iconic, without a question. Knowing for being both with women and men, his most recent life partner was known as Leo Dell'Orco. According to the website, he and the rest of the employees and his family will continue the Armani brand forward. The House of Armani will continue. So props to Giorgio Armani, and thank you for giving to us what you did. Next up is some exciting travel destinations. Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is these are actually some exciting retirement destinations. We are growing older gay. At some point, we are going to retire. And while the United States is a beautiful place, sadly, in a lot of ways, especially for our queer and transgender communities, it's becoming a third world country that's just as dangerous as some of the worst on the globe. And so many people are really seriously thinking about either moving altogether just to live, but at the very least thinking about retirement in other countries. And there is a podcast out there called the Queer Money Podcast. And these guys talk about a lot of different topics around retirement and saving money and building wealth and investing for queers and queer couples. These guys put out a list in the last week or so that I found quite entertaining. It was the top cities to retire in around the globe that offer quite a price discount over the United States. And these are beautiful places. Montevideo, Uruguay, 55% less on the cost of living versus the United States. And this cost of living that I'm going down the list of here has to do with healthcare, housing, food, utilities, the entire makeup of what our cost of living is. Next down the list is Chiang Mai, Thailand, 48% less than the United States. Lisbon, Portugal. This is actually a quite popular and very open place for the LGBTQ community. I've seen a lot of activity on social media. 36% less on the cost of living. Puerto Vallarta. Now, this is a very popular destination, a getaway for a lot of people in the gay community. There's a lot of events there, but you can retire there and pay 35% less on your cost of living. And it's a nice place. It's hard to beat, really. Barcelona, Spain, another very nice place on this planet. Now, Spain in general is a very gay-friendly place if you're in the right parts of it. Barcelona, Spain offering a 31% discount on the cost of living. And actually, I have a couple of friends that are here in Phoenix that sold their house who are actually in the process of moving to Spain. And they've actually been in this process for about 2 years, because if you're going to do it right, if you have property and you have wealth here in the United States, you have to structure how you unplug yourself from the country just right so that you avoid a tax bill either here or there as a result of divesting. And so they studied up on this. They studied up on the healthcare, how to get their visas, how to do the whole thing. They scientifically did this. And it's been a 2-year process for them. And they're actually getting ready pretty soon to finally consummate that process with their move to Spain. And I think they saw where we're at right now in our country coming a mile away. Most of us did. Most of us did, if we're honest. It didn't take a rocket scientist, but these guys were actually able to do something about it. And we will be following their story at some point because I consider them good friends, and I know how scary it must be for them on some level. They're very excited about it, but scary. And I did need to mention again, Barcelona, Spain, a 31% discount over the United States. And the last one I'll talk about here is St. Paul's Bay, Malta, another beautiful exotic place. That one's like a 40% discount over the United States as relative to cost of living. Now, there's quite a few other countries on their list. I highly recommend you check these guys out. The Queer Money Podcast. You can get the entire list from them and a little bit more detail on how these things work. And a lot of their podcast and a lot of their information goes into detail about how it is that you actually go about retiring to another country and some of the things to avoid, some of the things to make sure you do, and so forth. I always like plugging a good podcast, and these guys are on top of that. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is an upcoming event. You might notice today that I'm dressed in my full leather gear, and part of it's because I was inspired by my beautiful boy who was doing housework this morning wearing his leather collar, and he inspired me to go ahead and go all the way for all of you today. And it fits because we're talking about Mid-Atlantic Leather has set dates for their 2026 event. That's going to be in January of next year, January 16th through the 19th, 2026 in Washington, D.C. MAL for short, one of the premier leather events on the East Coast. There are 3 or 4 big leather events around the country that send their title holders to the big one in Chicago, International Mr. Leather. This is one of them. And this is all I've got on that because their website, right there on the screen, leatherweekend.org. If you go to it right here and now, it's going to say more information to come. They don't have a lot of detail on their schedule, their event, and their menu yet. I don't think when I looked, you can buy your tickets or your passes yet, but mark the date for MAL 2026. And that's all I got for you today, guys. And since we're talking about leather and I mentioned IML, all of my brothers in Chicago, my sisters in Chicago, I'm feeling it for you right now with the war about which you're ready to fight with the federal government for existing. All the crime. Oh no. I don't know how I ever walked around that city for miles and miles in my full leather and never even once got yelled at by a passing car. There's so much crime there, you need the military to come in there and fix it for you. But sadly, it's really not about that. It's about immigration, and there's just going to be a lot of suffering for Chicago ahead in the coming days and weeks. And good luck. Good luck to all of you there. Stay safe, please. And that's it for today. You can see our latest episode right there. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. Follow us on social media. We need all of the support we can get. I love y'all.